They thought your silence meant innocence, but they never realized your quiet was not ignorance, it was observation, the kind that sees truths even words try to hide. Love stories are not always loud. Some begin in glances that last half a second too long, in pauses between sentences, in the way one person studies the other as if they are a mystery written in a language only patience can translate. Ours was that kind of story, soft, unannounced, almost invisible to everyone except my heart. You always believed I didn't notice. You thought your distance was subtle, your emotional walls invisible, your careful detachment too delicate to be seen. When you pulled away, you assumed I would simply accept it, like a child who doesn't question why the sun disappears at night. But what you never understood was that I wasn't naive. I was watching. I was learning the rhythm of your silences, memorizing the way your voice changed when you were afraid to feel too much. I saw the way you hesitated before replying to my messages, how your words became shorter whenever emotions grew deeper. I noticed how your eyes softened when you thought I wasn't looking, and how quickly you looked away when you realized I was. You thought you were hiding, but love has a strange gift, it turns observation into intuition. I didn't confront you. I didn't chase you. I didn't demand explanations, not because I didn't understand, but because I understood too well. I knew your distance was not rejection, it was protection. I knew your silence was not indifference, it was fear. So I stayed quiet, not out of weakness, but out of respect for the fragile places inside you that even you were afraid to touch. You mistook my patience for innocence. You believed I didn't see the contradictions, the way you'd pull me close one day and drift miles away the next. But I saw everything. I saw the war between your longing and your fear, the way your heart stepped forward while your mind pulled it back. And then one day, something changed. Not in me, I had already seen the truth. It changed in you. You began to realize that I had never been fooled. That every time you tested my presence, I stayed. Every time you expected me to misunderstand you, I understood you instead. Every time you hid, I quietly waited where you left me. That was the moment it finally reached you. I was never naive. I was aware. I was simply choosing love over reaction, understanding over assumption, patience over pride. You once thought you were protecting yourself from me. But the truth is, I was protecting you from the fear inside you. And when you finally saw that, when you finally understood that my silence was not blindness but awareness, something inside you softened in a way it never had before. Because being seen, truly seen, is the one thing an avoidant heart both fears and longs for most. In our story, silence was never empty. It was a language, soft, patient, and almost invisible, yet it spoke louder than confessions ever could. You believed words were proof of understanding, that love had to be explained to be real, that feelings needed sound to exist. But I learned you long before you ever spoke your truths, because I listened to the spaces between your sentences. I listened to pauses, to unfinished thoughts, to the way your breath shifted whenever emotions brushed too close to the surface. When you fell quiet, others might have thought you had nothing to say. I knew better. Your silence carried meanings your lips were too careful to release. It held your fears, your doubts, your guarded hopes, and the tenderness you tried to hide behind casual replies. I didn't rush to fill those quiet moments. I stayed there with you, inside them, letting them unfold like slow petals opening under moonlight. Because silence, when shared with someone you love, is not absence, it is presence without performance. You didn't notice how closely I watched. Not in suspicion, not in worry, but in devotion. I observed the small shifts in your eyes, the way your shoulders relaxed when you felt safe, the way your voice softened when your guard slipped for just a second. These were your true sentences, spoken without sound, written in gestures instead of syllables. Anyone could hear your laughter, but I listened to what existed underneath it. Anyone could hear your reassurances, but I paid attention to the hesitation hiding behind them. You once mistook my quietness for simplicity, thinking I didn't question your contradictions or sense your distance. But my silence was never ignorance. It was understanding choosing not to interrupt. It was love choosing not to accuse. It was patience choosing not to rush a heart that was still learning how to stay. I knew that if I spoke too soon, I might break the fragile honesty you didn't even realize you were offering. So I stayed still, not because I had nothing to say, but because I was hearing everything you never said aloud. Love is often imagined as something that rushes forward, something fearless and immediate, something that declares itself the moment it appears. But our love was different. Ours was the kind that lingered in doorways, that paused before stepping inside, that chose to watch quietly before saying a single word. I didn't fall for you in a storm of confessions, I fell for you in observation, in stillness, in the gentle study of who you were when you thought no one was paying attention. I noticed you in the moments you believed didn't matter. The way your voice softened when you spoke about something you cared about. The way your eyes searched the ground when emotions brushed too close. The way your laughter sometimes carried a shadow, as if joy itself made you nervous. Love, for me, began not with what you showed the world, but with what slipped out when you forgot to hide. You thought love had to speak quickly to be real. You thought if someone truly cared, they would rush to define it, label it, confess it before silence had the chance to settle. But I loved you the way dawn loves the horizon, slowly, patiently, watching the colors change before announcing the sunrise. I didn't need to interrupt your walls, I wanted to understand why they existed. I didn't need to question your distance, I wanted to learn what it was protecting. So I watched, not like a stranger studying a puzzle, but like a heart memorizing another heart's language. I watched the rhythm of your closeness and your withdrawal. I watched how you reached for me without realizing it, then pulled back as soon as you did. I watched the way your silence sometimes asked for comfort more loudly than words ever could. And while you assumed I was passive, I was actually present in the deepest way a soul can be. Watching was not hesitation. Watching was devotion. Watching was love choosing understanding over urgency, patience over pressure, depth over display. Because some hearts are not opened by knocking loudly, they open when someone sits beside the door long enough for trust to unlock it from the inside. You carried your heart like something fragile wrapped in layers no one was meant to unwrap. From the outside, you seemed composed, almost untouched by longing, as if closeness was a language you had outgrown. People admired that about you, your independence, your calm distance, your ability to step back when emotions grew too loud. They thought you were strong because you never clung, never chased, never let yourself be seen needing anyone. But I saw something different beneath that careful stillness. I saw the quiet contradiction living inside you. You feared the very thing your soul leaned toward. Every time warmth reached you, you stepped away as if it were fire instead of light. Every time affection brushed your skin, you disguised your reaction, pretending you hadn't felt it at all. Yet I noticed the truth in the smallest details, the way your breathing changed when our hands almost touched, the way your words slowed when our conversations drifted into sincerity, the way your eyes softened for a second before your walls returned to their familiar place. It wasn't that you didn't want closeness. It was that closeness wanted you back, and that terrified you. Love, to you, felt like standing at the edge of deep water, knowing you longed to dive in but fearing you might forget how to breathe once you did. So you stayed at the shore, convincing yourself you preferred the safety of dry ground, even while your gaze kept returning to the waves. I understood that your distance was not rejection. It was defense. It was a shield built long before I arrived, shaped by moments that taught you vulnerability could hurt. You didn't run because you didn't care. You ran because caring felt too powerful, too consuming, too capable of reaching places inside you that you had spent years trying to lock away. And still, despite your retreats, something in you kept turning back toward me. Not boldly, not openly, but quietly, almost unconsciously. Like a compass needle that trembles yet always points north, your guarded heart kept leaning toward the very closeness it insisted it didn't need. You always believed you understood the roles we were playing. In your mind, you were the careful one, the guarded one, the reader of situations, while I was simply the gentle presence beside you, kind, quiet, uncomplicated. You assumed I moved through your world without noticing its hidden corners, as if my softness meant I didn't see the shadows behind your smiles. But what you never realized was that being underestimated gave me a kind of vision you never protected yourself against. Because you thought I didn't notice, you stopped hiding as carefully. You let your guard slip in moments you considered insignificant. You showed pieces of yourself not because you meant to, but because you believed there was no need to conceal them from someone you thought wouldn't understand. And that was where my advantage lived, in your certainty that I wasn't looking closely. While you relaxed, I observed. While you assumed, I understood. While you believed you were unreadable, I was quietly learning your entire language. I saw the contradiction between your words and your pauses. I noticed how your confidence faltered when conversations turned sincere. I noticed how you sometimes pulled away right after moments of closeness, as if intimacy itself startled you. You thought those shifts were invisible, that they passed like brief clouds across a sky no one was watching. But I was watching, not to judge you, not to expose you, but to know you. Truly know you. Being underestimated never hurt me. It became my refuge. Because while you believed you held the emotional distance, I held the emotional awareness. You thought you were protecting yourself from being understood, but in truth, you were revealing yourself freely to someone you believed couldn't read between your lines. I never interrupted your illusions about me. I let you believe I was naive, because that belief made you honest in ways you didn't realize. And in that quiet space, where you felt unobserved, unexamined, safe from interpretation, your real self appeared without defense, without performance, without the careful armor you wore for the rest of the world. You didn't realize what you had while it was gently standing beside you. Not because you didn't feel it, and not because it wasn't real, but because your heart had learned to recognize absence more easily than presence. When love is quiet, when it doesn't demand attention, when it simply stays instead of insisting, it can become invisible to someone who is used to searching for intensity instead of constancy. I was there in the calm spaces of your days, in the pauses of your thoughts, in the comfort you never had to ask for, and that is exactly why you didn't see me clearly at first. You believed love would feel dramatic, unmistakable, impossible to ignore. You expected it to arrive like thunder, loud enough to shake your certainty, bright enough to force your eyes open. But what you didn't expect was love that arrived like dusk, soft, patient, gradual, love that didn't interrupt your life but quietly became part of it. And because it didn't demand recognition, you mistook it for something ordinary, something that would always remain exactly where it was no matter how little attention you gave it. I watched you move through your doubts, watched you question your feelings, watched you step forward and backward as if your heart were learning how to walk for the first time. I never rushed you. I never asked you to see me faster than you were ready. But time, unlike love, does not wait gently. It keeps moving, even when hearts hesitate. And slowly, without either of us announcing it, moments began to pass that would never return again. It was only when you felt the quiet shift, when my presence was no longer as close, when my silence felt different, when the space beside you held more air than warmth, that realization finally reached you. Not loudly, not suddenly, but with a weight that settled deep inside your chest. You began to understand the things you once overlooked, to recognize the meanings you once ignored, to see the devotion that had stood beside you without asking to be seen.